just about as fast as he got them to drop their panties for him. After all, Asia was a firm believer in women who owned their sexuality. If these crazy chicks wanted a man like Julian to stick it to them, well, that was their right. If he were any other man, she'd say more power to them, or perhaps even get out of my way. The ones who came crying after a man like that later on, the pathetic ones who thought he was capable of more than a night or two of mind-blowing orgasms, in her opinion, they deserved what they got. Tears and girly emotions had no place in Julian's scope of interest. And honestly, any time one of them got to walk away with the breath still pushing through their bodies, they ought to consider themselves damn lucky. Still, she could almost understand their mistakenness. Julian's smile alone was not only sexy and compelling, it was enough to make anyone on the receiving end of it feel as if she were the only woman in his world. Hell, she was how many yards away? Even she felt like she was the only woman in his world, and he didn't even know she was there. Not that Asia was known for being the swooning sentimental type. No. No one would ever accuse her of having touchy-feely emotionalism or equally girly crap like that. She'd seen way too much in her life, done too much, and been too many places to have even the slightest smidge of a star in either of her eyes. So, instead of getting weak in the knees or panting and drooling when she saw Julian pull his smooth routine on the women who seemed to flock to him like vultures to a fresh kill, all she saw was a hell of a lot of masculine sex appeal and a man who knew how to use it to further his own untrustworthy agenda. Surprise, surprise. Unfortunately, for about a baker's dozen of women to date, his agenda had ended in highly suspicious and nefarious disappearances. There had even been a pair of bodies along the way, both men who had been closely associated with a couple of the missing women. Just because there had been no female bodies in his wake didn't mean he wasn't guilty as the walking sin he was. It just meant he had a really good hiding place for the... Asia pushed away the finality of that train of thought. She reverted to her analysis of her target. Julian was, among these many other things, a nomad. He'd moved through 7 states in as many months, finding large cities and enjoying them with a perverse and obvious relish, rather like the way he enjoyed his women, with the arrogance only a genius criminal mind could attain. He thought he was so clever. He thought he was miles above detection. Asia, however, had detected him. Much to the embarrassment of a few police departments across the United States, she alone had made the connection between Julian and the missing women, painstakingly tracking back over an all but trackless trail, making sure she found proof that he was in every single city on every single date of every single disappearance. Once she had established that, she had taken her proof to the FBI, who hadn't even known the cases from city to city were linked. After all, he didn't fit any profile any of them had ever heard of. Rarely did a serial killer cross state lines as he had done, and when one did, and subsequently escalated at the rate of Julian's pace, he usually began to get sloppy. At that point, they would be indulging in their own twisted, worked-up emotions, prey to stressors and triggers that would send them spiraling out of control. Also against the usual profile of a serial killer was Julian's remarkable sexuality and control. Often sexual dysfunction was key to this sort of mentality. Rape was the only way they could find their sadistic pleasure. But Julian lured woman after woman to his lairs again and again, made thorough love to them, and then he let them go. He didn't have a type he stuck to. He didn't have a tried and true lure. He didn't do anything where anyone could see or hear. He never left as much as a drop of DNA, his or theirs, to guide his hunters back to him. How was that even possible? How did women simply enter his apartment, never be heard from again, without leaving a trace that their paths had even crossed? How had Kenya simply faded from existence as if she didn't have a sister dying in increments every day because she was nowhere to be found? Asia's sister had very likely been Julian's 10th victim. And if Asia hadn't personally seen Kenya with the bastard the night she'd disappeared, she would never have gotten this close to him. Every time she looked at him, she could see the last image she'd had of her sister as Kenya had stood draped against that gorgeous body, winking at Asia from around his side, so proud of her conquest as she'd brazenly fondled his ass. It was pure fortune she'd even been there at all. Asia wasn't the nightclub type. Oh, she had been in more of them than she wanted to count, clubs, bars, and seedy pisswater places trying to pass themselves off as one or the other. People seemed to have a Jones for sticky floors, meat market socialism, and tawdry lighting backed by music that whined, droned, or throbbed. She had never enjoyed it, never wanted to tolerate it, and never had a choice, it seemed, as she ended up in them time after time. But the night of her disappearance, Kenya had begged and pleaded with her to come out and relax and loosen up and try to have a good time. What her sister had really wanted was a tough-assed bodyguard in the form of a lethal sister to keep the losers off her while she scoped for something rare and fine to take to bed for the night. She had found Julian. A rare find indeed. In a club packed with male meat, Asia's beautiful, rambunctious sister had managed to pick the one and only psychopathic killer in the lot. But he had a pattern, just like they all had patterns. It had taken some